Good morning.
Good morning.
I think the hardest part of my day was holding an A&T cup, so I need somebody to get me a Central cup. Thank you all so much for allowing us to be with you this morning. I really don't have much to say. I feel like Freeburg captured each and every bit of the essence of what we do. Alamance Achieves actually kind of was founded in 2015, and it was founded without staff. It was a community initiative. When Cone Health and Alamance Regional merged, they created Community Foundation. And one of the initiatives of that foundation was a focus on education. So when you think about it, to make sure every child is ready to succeed. How kids show up for kindergarten is not a school system problem. That is a community issue. How do we make sure they're reading on grade level, they're prepared for high school math, they're enrolled, employed, or enlisted, and then persist in college and or career? And there is this belief that if I can just get them to college, I've done it. But the belief is to and through. So Alamance Achieves focuses on our community and our kids. Quick story, and then we're going to get into the true essence of us being here today. But I grew up in Bladen County. How many of you have heard about Bladen County? Recently was involved in some voter fraud scandal. Yeah. Well, it's a very small community with very limited resources. And there were these group of kids, it was about 15 or 20 of us that lived on Newkirk Street. And Newkirk Street was right beside the elementary school. Most of the parents who lived on Newkirk Street were grandparents raising their kids. There was some substance abuse, there was some formal criminal history. But the community of Bladen County decided in order for our community to thrive, this group of students needed to thrive. They made sure we had opportunities for extracurricular activities, for enrichment, for tutoring. They came into our community to ensure that we had work skill ethics and that we not only made it to, but through college. So when I think about a community, it isn't always a community that is resource rich. It is a community that is invested. It is a braided approach to looking at funding that doesn't create competition, but creates alignment and opportunity. So when we think of the collective impact model, we have an aligned agenda that doesn't necessarily highlight us, but what are our partners doing well? What can we scale? And how do we remove pockets of excellence to create opportunity for all kids? So each day we wake up excited, we wake up fulfilled, and we wake up determined to make outcomes for kids in Alamance County better. One of our great partnerships to show what it means for a community to invest is our Keenan Impact Fellows, which are considered to be service year fellows. So after they graduate, Elon University gifts 6 fellows in Alamance County to work in partnership to begin to move the needle. So we're excited. We look forward to taking you through hardship to prosperity. While you're experiencing this, I'd love for you to think about the privilege that you sit in. I'd love for you to think about the opportunities you were afforded. I'd love for you to think about if you struggled in your educational journey or if things were just naturally available for you. Think about your family structure. Think about your community structure. Think about the schools that you attended. And during this time, if you're my age, the A, B, C, D was on your report card. It wasn't on the school building. So as we move through this today, and then think about the privilege you have to change the outcome for one of the students. So I appreciate your time. I hope that you enjoy our presentation. I do need to give special thanks to Barbara. She kind of sits in the back and hides, but she is our logistic queen. She makes sure everything happens, and you'll see her in and out in just a few minutes, but she makes sure everything goes well. We did not create this simulation, but we did purchase the license to it. It actually was created in Ohio, but it has been a real way for people to actually understand. And the last piece of this that we may not really get to dig in, but think about the equity of this. Think about the diversity and inclusiveness of what an educational journey looks like in North Carolina. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Lexi Roberts, and we're really excited to present this morning. But we're going to get you started with a little bit of musical chairs. So if you could just spot a packet at the middle of the table, but there's a couple of tables that we need a few people to join. There's one in the far, far back. We would like at least 3 or 4 people at each table. So if a couple of people don't mind scooting to that back table to fill it in their packet, we would really appreciate that.
And then also this table up here in the front, the gentleman with the glasses, we could have at least 2 more people, 2 to 3 more people join him as well. It's okay, you'll see your friends after the simulation, I promise.
She said that good-looking gentleman. Yeah.
Okay, there's a packet. Just take
Coffee and milk.
We can have one more person at that back table.
Okay.
Yeah, one more person at that back table. Yes, at least 3. That's fine.
No. It's fine. We're just gonna have to. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Thank y'all for doing that. You'll be able to return to your seats at the end of the presentation. So we just want to say thanks for joining us for the Cradle-to-Career experience. We call this an experience because we want you to engage in the process. So for the next hour or so, please disconnect from outside distractions. The more you invest in this experience, the more you will get out of it. During the experience, everyone will play the role of either a student or an advocate. There will be a total of 9 students in this activity. Not soon, but, well, not now, but soon, you'll open the envelopes and we'll begin the simulation.
When it is time to open your table envelope, you will find a large student name tag in the plastic sleeve. They'll look similar to what you see on the screen. Someone from your group needs to volunteer to be a student, and then everyone else in the group will be an advocate. If you volunteer as a student, you'll be standing up front during the experience. You will represent a fictional student, so I promise that you won't have to answer any multiple choice questions. I won't make you do any math problems, because math isn't my strong suit. You will be representing a fictional student completely.
If you are an advocate, you will remain in the audience, but you will actually have more responsibility. It will be your job to support your student along their journey from cradle to career. Please open the envelope and decide who will volunteer to be a student. Students, please come join us up at the front once you have your name tag.
Well, good too.
Forgot about like that.
Yeah. Okay.
You got
It's Dylan.
you and
I don't
Alan
know
have
how
the
many times
responsibility.
they picked
What are we
up.
supposed to do now?
Let's hope not a lot.
We have our students.
Dang, 'cause that's 2 D's that are out.
You're going to wear the name tag. We'll give you some instructions in a second.
Because we still have all the jobs.
Hey, Billy.
We still have all that.
Okay.
So I think we only have 1 D.
And we don't have Katie. Katie's not there. Okay. Dylan's okay. We didn't use Dylan very much.
I had no heat last night.
Let me check.
Great. That's perfect.
I'm so sorry.
I'll tell you the rest of the story later. Where I slept at last night.
Okay.
Which you didn't sleep in your room?
4, 5, 6, 7,
Oh
8.
dear.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so advocates, the materials that you need for your part of this experience will be in the envelopes labeled round 1, 2, and 3 as you see on the screen. Only open the envelopes when we tell you.
The experience was designed to help everybody understand how each transition point in a child's education impacts success and opportunities into adulthood. We call this the cradle to career journey. Students, you have a fictional identity that represents a journey through formal education. Please remember you are not sharing any personal information about yourself. You are representing someone else. Advocates, think about what role you play. You are a family member, a community member, concerned about student success. Your goal is to do all that you can to encourage and support your student. Pay attention to your students' progress. Also be mindful of how your students are progressing. Students will make the journey 3 times in the next hour. Each time the process will be slightly different, but students' patterns of success will remain exactly the same. So it's a good idea to pay attention early during the experience. Whether you are a student or an advocate, think about how you're feeling during this experience. There'll be time later on for you to reflect.
Okay, so we know from the data out there that there's a strong relationship between educational attainment and life outcomes. We also know that the journey towards educational attainment begins at birth. There are always exceptions, but higher levels of education attainment generally lead to higher levels of prosperity for individuals and a community. Of course, we also know that students in communities that struggle from cradle to career tend to face more hardship. We want students to contribute on the prosperity side of life. We define prosperity as having the knowledge, skills, and resources to support ourselves, our families, and our communities.
So, advocates, this is what your students see on the floor around them. Each dot on the floor helps a student understand where they are on the journey. Green dots represent prosperity. Red dots represent hardship. Obviously, the further a student goes in either direction, the more prosperous or hardship they are experiencing. The yellow dot represents a moment where a student is just as likely to end up on prosperity as they are hardship.
Okay, so advocates, you may now open your round 1 envelopes. Students, your profile should be in the back of your name tag.
Yes, you can take them out.
Okay, you can take them out, yeah. Oh, okay. I was like, oh no, we lost a student. So in your profiles, you'll see paragraphs that are printed in either red or green. So green paragraphs indicate that you are successful at a transition point, while red indicates an unsuccessful transition. Now look at the dots on the floor. You will move along the dots based on whether you are green or red at a transition point.
So green is always good. So if you have a green paragraph at one point of your transition, you will move 2 spaces towards prosperity. It does not matter where you are standing. If you are on a transition point and your paragraph is green, remember, you will always move 2 spaces in the direction of prosperity.
Red is never good, but sometimes it's worse than others. If your transition is red and you are standing on a green dot, you only need to take 1 step back in the direction of hardship. If your transition is red and you are standing on a red or a yellow dot, you need to take 2 steps back in the direction of hardship.
So let's recap. Green is always good. Green gets you 2 steps in the direction of prosperity every time. Red is always bad. Red equals 1 step back towards hardship if you are standing on a green dot. Red equals 2 steps back if you are standing on a yellow or red dot. Students, these rules are on the back of your name tag, so if at any point you need to reference it, you have the rules, or you could just ask us. Advocates, pay attention. You know your students and support them on this journey.
All right, in this first round, we're going to have all the students start on the yellow dot. The start of round 1 represents our goal of providing all children with equal footing and opportunities from birth. So students, if you could cluster as best as you can around that yellow dot. Advocates, we want you to be sure that you understand the basic definitions of success at each transition point. Basic descriptions of students at each transition point are also included in your round 1 envelope on that yellow sheet.
So here we go. Students, look at your profile in kindergarten readiness. If you are green, that means you are prepared for school success. If you are red, that means we are not prepared. Does everyone see their profile for kindergarten readiness? Awesome. So, okay, if you're ready for success in kindergarten, go ahead and take 2 steps towards prosperity. If you are not ready, take 2 steps into hardship. Once you made that move, students, look at the advocates, and advocates, find your student. Early learning and development are critical. We know that small readiness gaps become larger achievement gaps if they are not addressed right away.
All right, so let's move on to 3rd grade reading. Again, students, refer to the green or red outcomes on your profile. If you're reading on grade level in 3rd grade, take your 2 steps in the direction of prosperity. If you are not reading on grade level, move towards hardship. Students, now face the advocates. Advocates, take a good look at your students. Reading is an essential skill in school and in life. Third grade reading is one of the most significant predictors of student success. Also, everyone in this room should notice how large achievement gaps can be between students before they're even 10 years old.
Okay, so we are off to middle school. Students, if you are prepared for high school math by the end of 8th grade, move towards prosperity. If you are not prepared for high school math, step towards hardship. Algebra 1 or equivalent in 8th grade is a strong predictor of college and career readiness after high school. Students who complete Algebra 1 earlier free up space in their senior year of high school. These students end up taking advanced courses that help them earn college credits before graduation. Students, look at the advocates. Advocates, look at your students. We know that not everybody has to love math, but all students should feel capable in a math class. Middle school is a time when students form identities of themselves as either good or bad at math. That mindset becomes extremely difficult to break or change later. Students with low confidence and will avoid rigorous math and science courses in high school, which can also limit their career opportunities later in life.
Okay, so students, please turn to the center if you're not already and face each other. Like that way. Turn. Yeah. Like look at your friends across the gap. Yeah. Okay. Sadly, this may be the last time you hang out with some of your friends. Some of you will enroll in honors courses and participate in enrichment activities during high school, while others will just struggle to keep up, and school becomes something to escape rather than embrace.
We are moving on to one of the most challenging transitions of all, the first year of high school. Students, look at your profile. If you are achieving at grade level at 9th grade, take your steps based on your profile.
Look at your profile. No,
So
if you're green, you take two
take
steps towards
this way.
green. Yeah.
I know you want to hang out with your friends. I know. And so sorry, Abby.
Yeah. Also, the rules for moving are on the back of your name tag if you ever get a little confused. Students.
All right, students face the advocates. High school is a challenging transition. Getting off to a strong start sets your children up for success for the next 4 years. We define success as earning at least a B average and also earning 1 or more credit at the minimum before the end of 9th grade. That 1 extra credit may be earned in middle school or earned in 9th grade, but it gives students more flexibility and options in the last years of high school. These students can focus on their future instead of worrying about whether or not they will graduate.
All right, so let's transition to college and career readiness. There are many paths to success that don't include a traditional 4-year degree, but 80% of the jobs of the future that pay a living wage will require some education beyond high school. Regardless of whether a student chooses to enroll right away, seek employment, or enlist in service after high school, having college readiness skills creates opportunities for the future. So, students, move forward or back towards prosperity and hardship based off of your profiles. And I don't know if everyone heard me, but students, there are rules for how to move on the back of your profiles if you ever get a little confused. Now, if you've moved, please turn and face the advocates. Advocates, look at your students.
We are beginning the college and career persistence transition point. This is about earning a living wage in a career that you can stick with. We call this being prepared, passionate, and persistent. The happiest and most successful people are often those who got to choose their career paths. People who are stuck in a job or career that didn't choose tend to be unhappy and less prosperous. If you are persisting in college and career, take your steps towards prosperity. If you are not persisting in college or career readiness, take the appropriate number of steps towards hardship. Students, face the advocates. Unemployment, rates for high school graduates are twice as high as they are for college graduates, certified and skilled professionals. Career certification and post-secondary degrees mean better jobs, less poverty, and greater opportunity.
So let's take a look at where the students are standing. This visual representation is nearly the current reality in the United States among adults 25 and over, according to the American Community Survey. In America, roughly 39% of adults have an associate's degree or higher, 21% have some college but never earned a degree, 28% earned a high school diploma or the equivalent, and 13% never graduated from high school. Before this session, we interviewed some of these fictional students to learn what their lives were like. Please take a few moments to listen to their stories.
Life after a very successful Cradle-to-Career journey. I was successful all through school. I graduated with so many advanced placement and early college credits on my transcript that I was one semester ahead when I started college. I earned a merit-based scholarship for college and graduated with very little debt. I earned a bachelor's degree. I will earn a graduate or professional degree during my career. My salary starts well above the national median. My career earning potential is among the highest in the world. I will retire with substantial savings and investments. I can adapt to shifts in the economy. I have private medical insurance. I own a home in a safe neighborhood among families with similar levels of education and income. My children are set up for success in school. We have resources to support their educational needs and personal interests. I will pass on a significant social network and financial stability to my children.
Life after a mostly successful Cradle-to-Career journey. I was mostly successful in school. I did struggle a little. I didn't take AP or college courses before graduation, but I still did graduate college ready. I earned an associate's degree in a high-demand field, and it took me a little longer than I expected, and I graduated with $30,000 in student loan debt. My salary is above average, and in my lifetime, I'll definitely earn more than a high school graduate. I invest some of my paycheck into a retirement account, but wish I could do more. I have some form of private investment account or pension when I retire. I do have private health insurance, and my children, like their preschool teachers, on vacations we try to visit historic sites or museums. I live in a safe community, and I do worry about my job being downsized or replaced by a computer. My partner works so that we can handle a setback if something happens.
Life around the median. I am a typical resident of this community. Of course I graduated from high school. I took some college courses but never earned a degree. I'm still paying off the loans. My salary is lower than I want because I don't have a trade skill or a high-quality career certificate. I have a few $1,000s in my savings account. I do not have a retirement plan. If there was a big change in the local economy, I could lose my job. I do have health insurance, but deductibles are very high. We will be in trouble if someone in our family gets seriously injured or ill. We are renting a house now. I'm hoping we can buy a place soon. A family member watches my preschool-aged children, which is helpful. Honestly, preschool is just too expensive.
Life after limited success, from cradle to career. School was not really my thing. I have a high school diploma, but that is it. I earn minimum wage. I wish I could get a union job or something that pays good, but I swear you have to know someone. Work is just okay. I have a job, not a career. Nearly all of my paycheck is gone after I pay the bills. I still have some credit card debt from when I was younger. Without Social Security, I will have nothing when I retire. I rent an apartment. I do not like my neighborhood, but what can you do? I get Medicaid for health insurance, so do my kids. My kids go to Head Start. They offer parent stuff in the evenings, but I don't have time to go. We have some books around. I'm not really a reader.
Life after constant struggles from cradle to career. We moved a lot when I was young, so I was always the new kid. I stumbled at every step from cradle to career. I was never on track. My family didn't know how to help me, and they didn't know anyone who could. After a while, I just gave up, and I dropped out of high school. Unemployment rates for people like me are double the national average. Incarceration rates are triple the national average. I've been on unemployment a few times now, and I filed for bankruptcy last year just to stop all the calls from collectors. The government aid I receive costs taxpayers up to $20,000 a year. I get Medicaid, but I only go to the doctor if I'm really sick. I worry about my kids being safe where we stay. This isn't a good neighborhood for them. And my kids hate school. I guess that runs in the family.
These life stories are the best way that we can show you the relationship between educational attainment and personal and regional prosperity. Education is not only the best way to increase prosperity, it is the only way to sustain that prosperity for generations into the future. Attitudes towards education and educational attainment become something that's passed down from parents to their children.
Students, please turn around so that your backs are to the advocates. Advocates, you watched these students move from cradle to career. These are volunteer students that represent a fictional student, but you can still see their real faces. Now that their backs are turned, I want you to visualize what these students look like in real life. I'm going to be silent for 30 seconds, and during that time, I want you to put a face to each of these students. Students, you can turn around. Advocates, what did the prosperous students look like in your mind? What about the students in hardship? Did you visualize affluent and low-income students ending up in different places? That would make sense. According to economists at Stanford, a child born to a parent in the bottom 20% of the income distribution only has a 7.5 chance of ending up in the top 20% as an adult.
Did you consider gender differences? Boys represent 82% of all preschool expulsions and are less likely to read on grade level in the first years of school. Later in life, gender stereotypes discourage girls and women from pursuing some traditionally male-dominated academic majors or careers. What about students with disabilities? What about students who struggle with gender identity or sexual orientation issues? These students carry seen and unseen burdens with them every step of their journey. Did you consider barriers related to language, race, ethnicity, nationality, or immigration status? Students of color have the least access to high-quality preschool experiences, receive less enrichment and support in their first years of school, and have fewer opportunities to take advanced courses before graduation. When they enroll in college, they often attend under-resourced institutions or face significant challenges of underrepresentation, discrimination, and bias.
Many of the differences we see in educational outcomes are more than personal choice or cultural difference. These reflect issues of systemic inequalities. Issues of systemic inequality significantly impact our ability to move forward as a community and a nation. Until we are able to accept and address these inequalities, many of which we create as systems operators, the outcomes seen right here in front of you will remain the same.
So, during round one, two things made me curious. First of all the students started the journey from the same point, on equal footing. Second, everything about the students' progress, or lack thereof, was defined exclusively through these transition points. This, as I'm sure you know, was an oversimplified depiction of life. In this round, we're going to change things up a bit. Students, your profiles will remain the same. Advocates, you're still looking at the exact same students. But here's the first change. We're not going to have all students start from the same point. That's just not realistic. So, advocates, open your round two envelopes and we'll arrange the students more realistically.
I'll do that.
Freddie, move. Okay. Come on. You're going to make your right here. Billy, Ryan. Right here.
I know you look so. You were. Thank
All right, that looks a bit more realistic.
I'm with you. And I'm going to go ask Billy's parents if I can have some favorite resources.
Now, advocates, you might have noticed that you have 2 green cards in your round 2 envelopes. Does everybody have 2 green cards? Yes? Awesome. This is exciting. Rather than just offering a verbal encouragement and moral support to your students, you advocates now have some resources you can invest. Each student advocate gets 2 resource cards. Each resource card represents 1 intervention to increase the support of your student's success. So if you invest a resource card at any time during the round, your student will automatically get to take 2 steps in the direction of prosperity. Woohoo! The rules, so we're going to go over the rules of how to use the resource cards.
Okay, so if you want to use a resource card before a If you want to use a resource card, you must do it before a transition occurs. Once we announce that a transition has happened, you can't go back because we can no longer wait for students to fail before we intervene. You may only invest 1 resource card at a time, so only 1 card can be used at each transition point. And then finally, you may only invest in your own student. With limited resources, we just can't allow for them to be shared. Now think back on your student's journey from Cradle to Career in round 1. Think about how you want to provide resources so that they have the most impact. To invest a resource, you will physically bring it up to the front and deliver it to your student and announce to the community. We will give you a few minutes to think about how and when you will invest your resources, and then round 2 will begin. Make a good plan because life happens quickly.
So, while you're community and support are trying to strategize, I'm just going to let you know, if you get a group, so say I come and I get a group, are you hold on to them? We will tell all of you at the same time. If you've got a resource card,
Mr. Ford, you have to wait for the transition.
I just want to advocate.
I know.
Sorry.
I know. He's like, this is going to be a real early intervention. You're on some prenatal care. I see you. I see you.
any of us, we're all going
She took 2 steps.
We are helicopter parents. We are.
I don't know if we're supposed to.
I would like to speak to the manager, actually.
They said pay attention.
Okay, so I thought she started right away moving back, and then she started coming up.
Okay.
In
the
8th
end.
grade, she started
We don't need to
making. So maybe she just agreed she's having trouble building her skills once she got into school.
All righty,
Early,
we
I'm
are
on board
about
early.
to begin.
I'm on board
Is
early.
everybody ready? So the second change in round 2 is that there will be some bad news that students will experience from time to time. We don't know when the bad news will happen or who it will affect, but you know what? We're just going to have to deal with it as the bad news comes. So, are we ready to get started? Awesome.
So all of our students are very young again. They have not even started school. Do any advocates want to invest a resource before this transition point? Awesome. Come on down. Make sure you announce who you're giving your card to.
Abby?
Abby.
Abby.
Freddie.
Freddie. Somebody over there.
Danielle. Danielle.
Danielle.
Okay.
Brian. Yeah. 1 card per transition point. Right.
Nice try.
I appreciate a good hustle. So students, have all resources that want to be invested been invested? Okay. So students, if you received a green resource card, take your 2 steps towards prosperity. Ooh, look at y'all. Yay. Okay, so students, if you are ready for success in kindergarten, step forward 2 spaces. If you're not ready, step in the direction of hardship. Remember that your steps backward depend on where you're standing.
What? Wait, did we not get licensed pre-K?
I don't know.
I do a wrong pre-K.
At least they got pre-K.
It's all about the bumper sticker.
It's all about the bumper sticker. Does the yellow, is that still? So even though we paid, she made no progress.
We are very disappointed, Danielle.
No, I was asking high-level questions. Hot. Give me another card.
All right, now let's move on.
You advocates are tough.
When it lets me.
Billy's got a card.
Could we turn up the volume, please?
Saw that card.
Uh-oh, we have some bad
Yeah.
news to share. Attention students, we just found out that you all have to move. A family move can be hard for any student, but struggling students are affected even more by this disruption. So students, if you are currently standing on a green dot, please take 1 step back towards hardship. If you are currently at the yellow dot or the first red dot, please take 2 steps back towards hardship. And students who are 2 or more red dots into hardship, take 3 steps back into hardship.
Okay, so let's move on to the 3rd grade reading transition point. Do any advocates want to invest resources before this transition?
We'd like an IEP, please.
Yeah, so if you want to invest, you can right now.
Smart one. If I expand for resources and you deserve them,
Okay, have all resources that want to be invested been invested? Okay, students, if you received a green resource card, you may take your 2 steps towards prosperity. All right, students, if you are reading on grade level, move in the direction of prosperity. If you are not, move back in the direction of hardship. Make sure you know where you're standing so you know how large your setback is.
Love you guys. That you were.
Where am I aiming?
So now moving
Seems about
on,
right.
do any advocates want to invest resources before middle grade math? Are there any resources to invest?
Is there anything left?
That's all they got. They got nothing left.
No worries. We'll just go ahead and move on because life doesn't wait. So moving on to middle school math. Students, look at your profile and look at where you are standing. Move the way you need to move. Forward 2 if you're green, back 1 or 2 if you're red, depending on where you are standing.
Caleb's plateau. Kicking the gear.
That counselor worked. Is it not working? Guys, where's Lawrence? Lawrence has one. Clicker.
Attention students. Some of you are attending high poverty schools where there is a lot of teacher and principal turnover and stress. This is not your fault, but you still end up suffering the consequences. Before this experience, a couple of students were randomly selected for this bad news. These students are Faye, Danielle, Freddie, Caleb, and Cody. If you are currently standing on the prosperity side, take one step back towards hardship now. If you are currently at the yellow dot or on the first red dot, take 2 steps back. And if you are 2 or more red dots into hardship, take 3 steps back.
Lawrence, we need to get another clicker.
Do any advocates want to invest resources before this transition point? Come on and bring them up.
You don't have any. We love you and you're going to do great.
We've got to try to guarantee that you're all right.
Oh,
you're welcome.
Just your own. You can only invest in your own student.
So Abby got one. We still need to announce him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Abby.
Billy.
Oh, yeah.
I got one.
Brian. Cody.
Alrighty, students, if you received a green resource card, please take your 2 steps towards prosperity. Go ahead and Billy and Brad, go ahead, yeah. Alrighty, so moving on to 9th grade math, students who hit the benchmark can earn up to 3 or more college credits before they even graduate high school. So students, look at your profile and move where you need to move. 1 step back if you're on the side of prosperity, 2 steps further into hardship, or 2 towards prosperity.
Danielle, start flirting with us. I'm getting there.
Huh? Lawrence, can we get the other clicker, please?
I'm getting there.
Can we get the other clicker? Wait.
Attention students. Your community has just been devastated by a natural disaster. Every student has been affected. You will have fewer opportunities and limited resources to prepare for state tests and college entrance exams. If you are currently standing on a green dot, take 1 step back towards hardship now. If you are currently standing at the yellow dot or on the first red dot, take 2 steps back. And if you are 2 or more red dots into hardship, take 3 steps back. Well, your back's against the wall, but you don't need it. Okay, pause for technical difficulty.
There we go. Alrighty, do we have any resources left to invest? If so, advocates, you're welcome to do it before this transition point.
All right.
We got one more.
Anybody else? Alrighty, student, if you received a resource card, please take 2 steps in the direction of prosperity. 1, 2, great. Now students, please look at your profile for college and career readiness. Students who are enrolled or employed or enlisted on a career path that leads to a living wage after high school, please move 2 spaces towards prosperity. If you are not on track, move in the direction of hardship, either 1 or 2 spaces.
Proud of you.
Attention students. Some of you live in violent neighborhoods or communities. To make matters worse, a new gang has moved into the area, leading to increases in gun violence and overdoses. The stress keeps you up most nights. Before the experience, A couple of students were randomly selected for this bad news. These students are Billy, Cody, Danielle, and Freddie. If you are currently standing on a green dot, take one step back towards hardship now. If you're currently at the yellow dot or on the first red dot, take 2 steps back. And if you are 2 or more red dots up to hardship, take 3 steps back. Kind of like go along the wall.
As far as back as I can go.
Before we transition to post-secondary experiences, I have scholarship dollars I want to give you. Students who are standing on a green dot, the prosperity side, please take 1 step towards prosperity. If a student is on the yellow dot or the first 4 red dots, you can move twice the space is closer to prosperity, because we know that scholarship opportunities can have a dramatic influence on non-traditional students, which is why they get to move twice as far ahead. However, if you are more than 4 red dots into hardship, you may not move. You cannot take advantage of the scholarship. The reality is you probably lack the skills needed to enroll in higher education. In fact, you might not even know about the scholarship.
Do any advocates that have resources want to invest before this transition?
Oh, they got resources. They just won't give them up.
All right. So this is our final This is our final transition point for round 2. Students, look at your profiles for college, career, persistence, and take the appropriate number of steps.
Are you starting to understand the dynamics of the experience? How does your community's prosperity look now in comparison with where they were in round 1? Whose life ended up about the same as it did in round 1? Whose life was different or even more drastic than before? Why do you think the community looks like this, the way that it does, even after advocates have resources to invest? Advocates, think about the most satisfying part of round 2 for you. Students, in what way was this experience more negative or positive for you? For everyone in the room, what challenges or thoughts are you considering at this point? What do you wish you could do differently?
So, we are about to start round 3. Advocates, please open your round 3 envelopes, and students, please return to where you were at round 2. I can also help you get there.
Abby.
Got it.
I don't know about that. We'll see what
Same pattern of success or failure. If it's successful at the transition point,
What we found was we invested in her.
and it got on this side.
Well, but initially, remember we were making jokes about it. She fell back in pre-K. Now we should further back than when we invested in pre-K. But then after we invested a second one, she went pretty sad.
Alrighty. So, advocates, students.
I think so, and add the other
We're back.
one. We hit her 3 times early.
So advocates and students, we now want you to consider what a different kind of community would look like. What if there were more resources available to support more students on the Cradle-to-Career journey? And what could we accomplish if we invested in more children and youth in our community? What, if anything, would you do differently? We're going to change the rules one more time in this round. Let's find out what would happen if we doubled your resources you can invest in your students. Woo-hoo. Also, imagine what you begin to think of ourselves as advocates for all of the students.
Hold on. What's your question? Yes, you should have 4 resource cards. advocates?
No. We'll get to
explain
the
the
rules
rules
in a second. Yes.
If you don't have 4 resource cards in your envelope, can you please raise your hand?
Great.
Okay.
4 resource cards. Let me know so I can get you some resources.
We will explain, but we like the imagination of what a community would look like to double our investments. So also, what if we begin to think of children, investing in children that might not be ours, that we might not have even met before? Based on your observations, do you think you know where the highest need and investment should go? We're going to review the rules.
Okay, so this is how round 3 is going to work. Advocates should now have 4 resource cards, but you must still invest them before a transition point occurs. Also, advocates may still only invest 1 resource card at a transition point, but there are no limits on where you invest them. In other words, you can invest a resource in any student, not just your own. Wink, 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 wink. Okay. Advocates can only give 1 resource at a time, but students may receive more than 1 resource card at a time. In other words, different advocates can invest in the same student at the same time. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Awesome.
But to answer your question, advocates can still only invest 1 resource at a time, but students, you can receive multiple. So is everybody ready? Is there any clarifying questions?
Where are Brian and Billy and Abby's parents, advocates?
I'd like to talk to them.
I don't know. Well,
Well,
we're all advocates for Abby and Brian and Danielle and Fred. This is a community, y'all.
Can we pitch for ourselves?
I mean, y'all can advocate for yourself. We'll make you some resource cards out to the side of you. All right, y'all. I think they're strategizing. Hey! So in life you can't really strategize, so we're going to start.
So we have some bad news. Students, this is sad and heartbreaking news. Some of you are exposed to 3 or more adverse childhood experiences, such as domestic violence, substance abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect. The effect of these experiences lasts well into adulthood, and they are certainly affecting you now. This happened to Chelsea, Freddie, Cody, Danielle, and Abby. So if you are on a green dot, please take 1 step back towards hardship. If you are currently on the yellow dot or the first red dot, please take 2 steps back towards hardship. And if you are 2 or more red dots into hardship, please take 3 steps further into hardship.
Freddie.
We're going to get you, Freddie.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
All right, so our students are very young again. They haven't even started school. Would anyone like to invest a resource card at this time? All right, make sure you call out who you're giving your resource card to. Danielle, Chelsea, Freddie,
What about Faye?
Freddie. Ooh, look at you, Freddie. Cody. Faye. Okay. Have all resources that want to be invested been invested? All right. If you received a green resource card, you may take 2 steps per every resource card that you just received. Raise the green! All right. So Students, if you are ready for success in kindergarten, step forward 2 spaces. If you are not, step back in the direction of hardship. Remember, your steps backwards depend on where you're standing.
Just one step back.
Instead of 2.
Go ahead, yeah.
What?
If they want
What?
kindergarten.
Attention students, each of you have been affected by a family crisis or chronic illness in your immediate family. As we all know, these events do not care about grades or test scores. They can affect any family at any time. But we also know that students who are more success and stronger social networks in school can get through these with less impact. So students who are currently standing on a green dot, please take 1 step back towards hardship now. Students, if you are currently on a yellow dot or the first red dot, please take 2 steps back towards hardship. And students who are 2 or more red dots into hardship, please take 3 steps further into hardship.
Right. So let's move on to the 3rd grade reading transition point. Do any advocates want to invest resources at this time? You may do so now. Remember, 1 investment per advocate group. Like the advocation thing. There we go, Faye. Danielle, did you get one? Freddie, Danielle, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Freddie, Danielle. All right, have all resources that want to be invested been invested? All right, students, if you received a green resource card, take 2 per every resource card you received. All right, Danielle's in green, Freddie's on yellow. All right, now, students, if you are reading on grade level in 3rd grade, take 2 steps towards prosperity. If you are not reading on grade level, take 2 steps back towards hardship.
What grade?
If you don't read, take 1 step back.
You should say 3 steps.
Just 1. If you're on green.
If I was on yellow, 2 steps?
Green is the only one where it's 1 step back.
Not the first time people said that.
Hi everybody, I'm back with some bad news. So students, some of you are experiencing homelessness or chronic housing instability. You have moved as many times as 6 times since kindergarten. Whatever relationships or supports you had at your last school are gone. This is happening to the following students. It is happening to Brian, Faye, Cody, Danielle, and Chelsea. Not Chelsea, just kidding. So if you are on a green dot, please take 1 step back towards hardship. If you are currently on a yellow dot or the first red dot, please take 2 steps back towards hardship. And if you are 2 or more red dots into hardship, please take 3 steps back into hardship.
Was Chelsea on there?
No, Chelsea was not on there, sorry.
You left her behind. So she's
Okay.
You got lucky, Chelsea. You
Right.
got lucky. You got lucky.
You did not lose a friend. So sorry. Okay. Do any advocates want to invest resources before this transition point? Yes? All right, bring them on up. Make sure you announce you're investing in. Okay, Freddie. Faye. Caleb. Brian.
I told him
Hey.
I need to see something. I need to see something.
Then I told her I believe in it too. I just need to see something.
Okay, have all resources that want to be invested been invested? All right, students, if you received a green resource card, take 2 steps per resource card you received.
Let's get you in the green, Fred.
Okay, Freddie said, excuse me!
Move outside.
Okay.
I feel literally different.
Moving on to middle school math. If you are ready for middle school math, please take your 2 steps towards prosperity. If you are middle school math, if you're ready, take 2 steps forward. If you are not ready, you may take your steps towards hardship. Remember, where you're standing depends on how far back you go. All right, moving on.
So do any advocates want to invest resources before this transition point? Go ahead. Go ahead. Who's getting that?
Danielle.
Yes.
Billy. Danielle.
Exactly.
Do well in the ACPS.
Hey, did you get in?
Yeah, well, look,
Fred,
she's
did you
getting
get
ready.
in?
All right.
We're letting everyone else
Have
take
all
you right
resources that want to be invested been in the 3 grade you're standing?
We're taking a vacation.
Okay. All right, say.
Going to Aruba, right?
Have all resources that want to be invested been invested? All right, students, take your appropriate number of steps.
2 per card.
2 per card. So if you got 4 cards, take 8 steps.
No wonder. I'm fine. No, I think 2 more.
You got
2 more.
There you go.
Thank you.
Keep going.
I don't think I do.
How many resources?
How many resource cards did you just receive?
3, so you take 6.
How many cards?
Just pick up the dot here.
I've made 6 steps.
You made 6 steps?
Yes.
How many cards do you have?
3.
Well, that she just has
Oh,
extra
so
for
four.
before.
Okay.
Great. Everybody's good.
Work with us, Danielle.
One-on-one. All right, students. All right, so students, this is the first year of high school. Look at your profiles. Look at where you are standing. Move the way you need to move. Forward 2 if you're green, back 1 or 2 if you're red, depending on where you are.
Something bad's getting ready to happen. I'm just going to tell you.
No advocate.
We are back with your Bad News broadcast. So, attention students, you are all experiencing feelings of social isolation. Sadly, leaders in your school and community have not designed supports for kids who are going through what you're going through. You are on your own. Most students experience these feelings, but students with more confidence in themselves and success in school often do a better job of staying on track. So, if you're currently standing on a green dot, take 1 step back towards hardship, which I think we all are. Yay! Not turn the lemon into lemonade.
All right, so do any advocates want to invest before this transition point? Yes? Who got Cody? Caleb? So Cody and Caleb? Is that it? Have all the advocates wanted to invest resources? Alrighty, so students, if you received a resource card, please take 2 steps in the direction of prosperity. Awesome. So then this is the college and career readiness transition point. So students, look at your profile and look at where you are standing. Move the way you need to move.
All right, before we transition to post-secondary experiences, we still have some of those scholarship dollars. Students who are standing on a green dot can move one space towards prosperity, which I think we all are, correct? Mm-hmm. All right, take your one step.
Okay. Now you have it, Freddie. I'm proud of you.
They could be pressing the button at any second.
Do any advocates want to invest resources before this very last transition point of the experience?
Freddie, what you had?
Don't you my man Freddie like that.
His credit's no good. His credit's not good. I've seen that account.
All right, who's getting it?
Are you doing Fred?
You got it?
Ready?
Are there any more resources? This is the last transition point. You cannot invest resources ever again after this point, for clarification.
Alrighty. So students, if you received a resource card, please take 2 steps in the direction of prosperity. Alright, now students, look at your profile and look at where you are standing. Move the way you need to move for college and career persistence. Forward 2 if you're green, only back 1 or 2 if you're red, depending on where you're standing. Students, look at your advocates. Advocates, look at your students. How is everyone feeling about our community's educational attainment now?
Better.
Yeah.
Substantially better.
Freddie has spoken. Substantially better. I want to give everybody a second to process and look at what's in the room. Look at who is in the same position that they were in comparison to round 1 and 2 and 3. Abby, Brian, Billy. And look at how many resources it took to get Freddie and Faye just a little bit past yellow, which if we recall, yellow is an equal chance to be on the side of prosperity or hardship. Thank y'all so much for letting us present.